Okay, my friends, it's good to see all of you. Some of you I have had the chance to see in person. Some of you I'm sure I soon will. But this is good. This is good. I'm glad to see all you guys. I hope you've been well over the past. I think it's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks since we last learned Gemara together. So glad to get back into this. And don't worry, we're going to ease in with a relatively short Gemara tonight. We're on Yud Beis Amid Beis on 12b. And as you can see, because there's a lot of Tosos, which we're not going through, don't worry, that makes it that we have a very small Amud, right? That's how the formatting works out. So we begin, if you're following in the text of the Gemara, the Surah Sadaf, we're on the third line, which I would have to believe is still the first page in Art Scroll, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Okay? And just while you're getting those, while you're finding precisely the place, just a little bit of background of what we'll be talking about tonight. As we mentioned in the Mishnah, we have two criteria for something to be kosher schach. Number one, it has to be something that grows from the ground, that's now detached from the ground. And also, it cannot be mekabel tuma. It can't be susceptible to becoming tame. So we are going to presently talk about a case in which it seems unclear whether something should be classified as susceptible to tuma. Following that, we will then talk about different materials that could be used for schach. And one issue might be, again, susceptibility to tuma, but we'll talk about other more extrinsic issues as well that could possibly invalidate schach for being used for the sukkah. And that'll be our general discussion tonight. So that's just what to look forward to. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. By the way, just sound check. You're able to hear me. Yeah? Okay, good. I always work with this computer. It's a shame. I guess all this money in this computer to see if a decent microphone. Okay. All right, number up. So when you are making an arrow, you have the arrowhead and you have the shaft. So there's two ways that you could put those two pieces together. It could either be that the hole is in the arrowhead, and then you put the shaft into the arrowhead. Or it could be the opposite, that the hole is in the shaft of the arrow, and then the arrowhead will have a piece protruding from it, and you put it inside the shaft. Now, these are referred to as chitzin zacharim and chitzin akevos, male and female, and you can figure that out yourself why. So Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, sicha bechitzin zacharim, sheira, benakevos psula. So if you have an arrow shaft that is zachar, meaning there's no hole in the arrow shaft, but rather it is stuck into the arrowhead, so that will be kosher because it's not a kli. It doesn't have a receptacle to it, and therefore it is not mekabel tuma. And whereas in the kavos, if the shaft of the arrow has the hole in there, so then it is considered nekeva. It's female. That's how it's classified. It's just not actually female. That's just the way it's referred to. So then it is mekabel tuma because it is a kli. So that seems to be relatively straightforward. So the Gemara asks, Zacharim sheira pshita. This why? Yeah, I mean this is very logical. This was not such a difficult teaching. What's the chiddush? I could have figured this one out on my own. So we may have thought I wouldn't put it past the rabbis to say, well, we know some arrow shafts are puzzle for schach and some are kosher, and you might confuse them, so you can't use any of them. Nope. Happens to be we got off scot-free. The rabbis were ever benevolent that day, and they decided not to make a gezerah on all the arrow shafts. Next, the nekevos. So we just taught that nekevos, that when the shaft has a hole in it, shita. So isn't that obvious that they're going to be puzzled because they are a kli and they are susceptible to becoming tameh, which would disqualify from schach? So basically also I could have offered a svara, and you look in Tosos, and Tosos reckons throughout Shas of different examples of this, that since the purpose is to, since it's not meant to stay that way, the purpose of that hole is so the arrowhead goes in the hole and stays there permanently. So I would say, even though there is a hole in it right now, but since the purpose of it is to be filled and to remain filled, so maybe I would say we don't classify it as something that's Mekabel Tama. However, that's the Chiddush. Kamash Milan, we do not view it that way. We look at it Basher Husham. All right. So we talked about Ben Soramo recently. So this is like the classic debate, classic Dvar Torah. The Ben Soramo, he's Nidon al Shem Sofa, the rebellious child. We look in the future and see what, if he's bad now, look what he's going to do later. Imagine that. So we want to stop him early. But then you look at Yishmael. Yishmael was judged Basher Husham. Even though he was going to do evil things out of line, we look at him here and now, and that's how we judge him. So I'm sure there's some nice Dvar Torah that one can make off all of this, but the idea is that we look at the here and now, and we see right here that there's no arrowhead inserted. Therefore, it is classified as a kli, and therefore it is disqualified, puzzle from being used as schach. End of this section of the Gemara. Let me pause if there's anything I can clarify. Okay. You see, you guys are asking the same questions tomorrow. I don't get it. Pshita. Okay, this is all straightforward. Baruch Hashem. Right? That's all we can pray for. Next. Okay. A little bit of background for this. I wouldn't be surprised if Art Scroll writes this all out. When one is making the flax ready for use, there's a whole process which involves soaking it and brushing it and combing it, and then you have to basically process. So the question is as follows. The Gemara is about to tell us, I'll just tell you a little outside, we know once the flax is completely processed, then it is tame. It's susceptible to becoming tame because clothing can contract tuma. In particular, Rashi points out, what kind of tuma are we talking about? Shechein roy li tame b'negai. That when it comes to tsaras, right? Tsaras affliction didn't just go on people's skin, but sometimes it go on people's, it could go on their clothing, it could go on their houses, arguably based on how you read the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So the question is though, at what point along the process does it cross that threshold that it is now susceptible to becoming tameh? And how early on do you have to go to say that it's not a kli yet and is not susceptible to tama? We got the question? Okay. So let's see. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rav Yochanan. So Rav Chana is reporting something that he heard in the name of Rav Yochanan. The reason I spelled it out is because it's going to be important just for the dialogue in the Gemara here. Anitze Pishtan Sula. If you use Anitze Pishtan, which is, now if you look at Rashi, Anitze Pishtan, he tells us what Anitze mean. After you combed it, meaning after you finish processing it, now you're just combing it out and making it ready to be used. So that would be puzzle for stock because it's fully processed. Now it is puzzle because it's susceptible to becoming tameh. However, bohutzni pishon kisheru. Bohutzni, what's bohutzni? So again, we look at Rashi. Which is lo nishra b'meha mishra, lo nofetz it's something that has not been soaked yet, it hasn't been crushed through yet. So since it's so early on, it hasn't been processed really at all yet. Therefore, it is not susceptible to becoming. However, b'hoshni pishtan eniode. When it comes to hushni pishtan, I'm not sure mahu what the status of it is. I'm actually just curious because I'm just basing my translation on Rashi here. Does article actually, what's their translation for Anitze, Hutzne, and Hushne? What's the how they render it into English? I'm curious for those who are using article. Or do they just transliterate it?
No, it's Hushne. You want to know what it called? What it says Hushne?
Yeah, what do they call it? Or Marina, can you give it to us in Russian?
I think soaked but not yet beaten.
Oh, so okay. So
it's also called by Yochanan partially processed.
Okay. So there's no, they don't give like some kind of literal. I was curious if there's like a literal translation. So okay, they're basing it on what how Rashi describes. Okay, good. So okay, but here's the thing. But Rabbi Rakana, who's teaching us this, brings us this message. In the Rabbi Yochanan, he says, I don't even know what Hushni Pishtan are. I don't even know what he's referring to. He says Hushni Pishtan, right? It's not just me, Moshe Kurtis, who used over here. Baruch Hashem, I'm a good company in this instance. Rabbi Rakana was actually what Yochanan was referring to. So there's two possibilities where this middle ground is, right? So this is the funny part. Hushni Pishtan, he's not sure what the status is, whether it's Mekabaltum or not. But we're not even sure what he's not sure about, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it. Paul.
Really? You're coming in and out sound-wise.
Oh, man. Where did I leave off? Or is it just constantly in and out?
The latter.
The Wi-Fi in the base medrash here. It is 3 out of 4 bars in the base medrash. See here, this is what I get for trying to do it in the base medrash, right? All right, maybe I just need to increase the Wi-Fi here. If it becomes untenable, let me know, and I could move locations if it gets to that point. All right? Okay. Unless it's already at that point. Are we already at that point? No. Okay. If it gets untenable, let me know, and I'll try to move to a better place with better Wi-Fi. Okay. Okay. So again, just the irony here is that Rabbi Yochanan said, I don't know what the halacha is for Hoshni Pishtan. And Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't even know what he's confused about. So we have 2 layers of confusion. So let's at least try to give 2 suggestions. Hushni Atzma, so daik flow nafitz doesn't mean, isn't referring to the stage of the processing where it's been crushed, but you just haven't gotten toward the end. You haven't combed it yet. So then Hushni Karile, whereas if it's only soaked in water but not yet crushed, then that's called hutzni. That's the then it's certainly the kabel tuma, or udila, maybe tari v'lodai. Maybe if it was immersed but it wasn't yet crushed, nami hutzni karile. Maybe if it goes that far back, it would still be hutzni. So he doesn't know. So this is just, again, it's just really funny that Rav Yochanan didn't know the halacha of Hushni, but we don't even know what the Hushni is that he doesn't know about to begin with. So the Gemara leaves it at that. So if the Gemara leaves it at that, I'll leave it at that. That was section number 2. Section number 3, our final section for tonight, that should take us on to your Gimel Amud Aleph. Now you might remember back on, what is it, Dalit, or I'm forgetting precisely where. Someone post facto will tell me where. Oh no, it's Avdal Amud Aleph. Not that you have to look back, but if you remember, Abaye and Rava had a discussion. Just a little background here about a sukkah, which is a dira srucha, which is what was the case? The case was if a sukkah was yutfachin b'hutzin yordan l'soch yud. So let's say you have the skach at 10 tfachim, which is the minimum height, but then it has little pieces that are dipping down. So while the skach is classified as being at 10 tfachim, so that's where the majority of it is, Rava said it would constitute a dira srucha. It would be an uncomfortable sukkah because functionally you have less than 10 tfachim really, and therefore one should not use it as their sukkah. So along a similar line of reasoning, we're going to see that there's certain schach that are inherently kosher. They check off the boxes of being both not susceptible to tumah and also growing from the ground, but for what we'll call incidental, extrinsic concerns, they cannot be used. So what are we referring to? Let's go into the Gemara. Amar Yehuda, so I'm just looking at Rashi over here. Rashi gives me these wonderful Laze Rashi, which I see over here. So Rashi says, what are these different kinds of vegetables that we are referring to? So Misakbahu, right? It says that you can use these kinds of vegetation, these vegetables for skach. Why? Last Rashi in the Amud. Now you might say, wait a minute, if these are vegetables, then they Team the Kabal Tuma. Food is susceptible to becoming tummy. But apparently this is not the kind of food that humans eat like to eat. So you have something that's like technically a vegetable, but it's not food that humans eat, so it's not susceptible to becoming tummy. That's what Rav Yehuda is teaching. I'm just curious also, because I don't actually wait. I think I have the translation. Nope, I don't have the translation over here. So I don't understand French. Does anyone tell me what article specifically? I'm making you guys do a lot of work with your articles tonight. I know I feel bad, Marina and Alex, because you guys are. I know you're looking very carefully, but it's not going to help me. Or unless you could translate from Russia to English. No, okay, too much chance. Okay, so it finds out what these precise vegetables are later. You'll tell me what they are, but that's what they are for our purposes. What Rashi tells us is that they are not edible by human standards. However, even though technically, again, they check off the boxes, Abayamar, Beshushi Misakim, Shavatsri Lo Misakim. So what's wrong with the latter? My taima, Kevan Desari Rechayu Shavguvanapik. Because it emits a foul odor, people are going to leave the sukkah. So even though it's technically kosher schach, people will be uncomfortable and they will leave regardless. Let me just quickly get in the next piece of Gemara, which is essentially a similar point. Amar Chana bar Rabba, Hani Hizmi Vihigi. Look those up later also. Misachin Behu. You can use these different kinds of bushes as well. So by Amar Behiz Misachin Behigi Lo Misachin. Why can you not use higi? Why is the bay against that? My taima came in dinasri trafayu shavik lavanafik. Since Rashi explains what it is, notion olin shalahen. Since their leaves will fall off, it will make it uncomfortable, and people will want to leave the sukkah. So there is, by the way, an interesting question we can ask on these two latter teachings. That is machlokas rishonim. The machlokas rishonim is: does it mean that the schach is pasul midoraisa? Are we saying that it's not teshu kain to duru anymore? It's a pasul sukkah. Or if you look at the language, it says lo mitachin. Notice that Abai doesn't say that the sukkah is pasul if you use this. Notice that Rav that Abai again says lo misachin. What does lo misachin sound like when you translate? Like you ought not to use it, which means lichat chila, one is advised, or there's a gezer midrabanan rather, not to use these different kinds of schach that will make it uncomfortable and people will leave the sukkah. However, b'diavad, if someone used it, they would still be yotzei the mitzvah sukkah. So this is interesting. This relates to our diur sukkah discussion, that there's different thresholds. If something is so bad that no one could stay in there, so then the sukkah is pasul on a doraisa level. If there's if you build a sukkah with a hornet's nest in there, and the hornets are going to be stinging everyone, that's not a kosher sukkah because you can't live in it. It's not a fulfillment of teshu kain to duru. It has to be livable like your home. However, there could be something that is livable technically, but you'd be uncomfortable. You would want to leave. This case, I didn't see anyone who made direct reference to this, but I'm sure someone else does. Later on in the Gemara, this relates to my 10:30 shir. I'll be giving the Shabbos Mirza Hashem. I'll be giving a shir on the sugya of istinus in halakha. I finally put the material together. But the istinus is someone who is easily uncomfortable and it drives him crazy. And there's halachic leniency and dispensations like turning your fan on before Shabbos walking. Okay, well actually that's related. No one says it. I can't. But based on these halachos. So there's a Gemara later on in which Rav Yosef, we see throughout Shas in Pesachim, in Bava Basra, in Sukkah, and maybe other places I just didn't notice, that Rav Yosef considered himself an istinus. So what happened was there were some leaves falling down from the sky. Abai says, wait a minute. It didn't reach the threshold that you could leave the sukkah yet. He says, yeah, but I'm an istinus. And even like a few leaves falling already makes me, I can't eat my soup. It's disgusting. I'm not eating it here anymore. So an istinus is allowed to leave the sukkah. But the implication there is for the average person, just some leaves falling, yeah, you're kind of uncomfortable, but you're supposed to soldier through it anyway. So I think that relates to this Gemara over here, if you understand that lichatchila, you shouldn't build a sukkah in an uncomfortable manner. But if it's a little bit uncomfortable because some leaves are falling, it's still a legitimate sukkah. It's just an istis who would leave, but it would still be legitimate for anyone else. You can still fulfill your mitzvah. It's still considered classified as Teshu Kain to Duru. So that was just my little ha'ara. But if you're interested in a general sugya of dispensations for, that should have been the title of it. Dispensations for discomfort. I was making the source sheet for weeks, and I was like banging my head trying to come up with a witty title. So quickly write that down. Dispensations for discomfort.
Rabbi,
There we go.
Rabbi,
Yes, Phyllis.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
The schach should not be that far apart, so many leaves could fall in and put you in
Well,
discomfort.
you see, you're thinking of like the bamboo mats that don't shed. The schach itself is shedding. That's what's happening, because the schach is made from branches with leaves.
Yes.
Dispensations for I'm sorry, I just had to quickly write down that title before I forget, because that'll hopefully be okay. Anyway, that's all for sure tonight. So I let you. We eased in very easily with a very short Gemara tonight. But God willing, the plan is that Hashem was very merciful and planned the Yom Tovim on the weekend, which means that Thursday nights are fair game and Thursday mornings for book club as well, unless you tell me otherwise. I see Marina shaking her no. I see Toby shaking her head yes.
Before Rosh Hashanah, definitely not for me.
I'll tell you what. We're meeting this coming Thursday, God willing. We'll see what the consensus is. Okay? Very good. All right. Good night, everyone. Good learning together.
Good night. Thank you.
Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Good
Good
job.
job.
You too. Thank you.